Bonsoir, bienvenue à la réunion du comité permanent.
Good evening to all. I would like to welcome you to the Standing Committee on Strategies and Public Policies meeting tonight, October 16th. We have with us online our mayor who is connected. We also have Mr. Ernest Thibodeau. We will be hearing several presentations tonight. No resolutions will be made tonight. Presentations are only for information and to be able to discuss the topics. We will begin with a presentation from the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority with Don Moore and Nagesh Jamula.
Welcome.
Hello and thank you. Je m'appelle Don Moore. Je suis le président de la PRC.
My name is Don Moore and I'm the president of CRPA.
Here this evening, we want to present to you a little bit of a reminder of who we are and our plans for 2024, both from a strategic level and a budgeting perspective as well, and talk a little bit about our strategic planning that we've been doing for the last year and a half and how we want to continue that work next year from there. Just a reminder who we are. 12 people appointed to the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority, 7 by the City of Moncton, 2 by the Town of Riverview, 2 by the City of Dieppe, and 1 appointed by the provincial government. Our provincial government appointee, JJ Doiron, is over here. And want to recognize the 2 members of the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority appointed by the City of Dieppe, citizen Benoit Boland and Councillor Corinne Godbout. So we appreciate the work that is done by all of our CRPA members, but just want to make special recognition here this evening. We have with us our senior officer, Superintendent Benoit Gillette, Inspector Chantal Farah, and we have from the civilian side of the force, Charles Savoy and Debbie Hathaway from there. So the Kodiak Regional Strategic Plan, the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority strategic planning process started in 2022. And out of it, after meeting with almost 1,000 people, or roughly 1,000 people, we got kind of 3 main areas where the residents of the Kodiak region wanted the police authority and the police service to be able to focus: community issues, vulnerable populations, engagement, communication, such, visibility and traffic issues, and drugs. Just a second, I'm not doing this right here. Out of that, we created a high-level strategic plan that involves 6 pillars, and you can see them here. And of course, this was done through focus groups and surveys and email submissions, and a lot of work was done in 2022 on such. We wanted to get a little deeper in that in 2023. However, because of some other things in the CRPA for our community, we had to refocus a little bit, but we plan to get back on the strategic planning of the CRPA to develop more detail concerning these 6 pillars in that work in 2024. Our strategic plan, when we put it together last year, had it such that we wanted 25 more police officers, 18 civilian roles. The 25 police officers to be broken out into 5 additional police officers for 2023, then 10 for 2024 and 10 for 2025, and then associated civilian roles as well. We also had planned to do an outreach program. Some of these things we didn't get to, so we didn't get to the outreach program. We didn't get to some of our detailed strategic planning we wanted to get to, largely based on trying to focus on getting a satellite office up and running in Moncton, downtown, on Main Street, 795 Main Street. And a lot of work's been done on that, and that's planning to be open in about 2 weeks from now. Okay, so 3 weeks. You said 3 weeks last week, so 2 weeks this week, so from now. So we're looking forward to that. So again, we want to reconfirm our pillars in our strategic planning process as a CRPA. But one of the things we are asking our regional police service to do is to put together kind of an 8 to 10 year operational plan based on the 6 pillars of our strategic plan as a CRPA. knowing and understanding what type of police units we need and what this community should be focusing on from a policing perspective. Also the possibility of additional satellite offices, maybe in Riverview and Dieppe and North Moncton. And we want to be able to plan out 8 to 10 years operationally of where we're headed as a police service. And so we're expected to have that operational plan done probably sometime in the third quarter, so September 2024. Just 1 second. Don't know why it's not advancing, so just give me a second. I'm going to ask our Vice Chair of the CRPA to go through some of the details with respect to the budget and then how that affects you as a City Council.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Your Worship and the Council. Overall, for 2024, we're asking for an increase of $3.9 million, which is 8.95% over 2023 costs. This consists of two RCMP portion and municipal portion. RCMP is around $2.8 million. Quite a few drivers and what's causing that increase. The biggest increase, the pay and allowances, is part of the contract that we have with RCMP. Oops, yeah. It's a pay and allowance, which is from contract that we have with RCMP, which is 3.5%. And this is mainly plus addition of 4 new members, 2 for population growth and 2 for community policing, total of $1,006,000. Over time, based on historical data that we are spending additional $520,000. In addition to that, we are modernizing some equipment that's related to hard body armor and cameras for the officers on the regular duty for a total of $689,000. In addition to that, indirect costs related to the pension and division administration. As the salary costs go up, the pension costs, even though the rate is staying the same, the pension costs go and increase. Similarly, division administration costs are going up because of the work they are doing, plus the training costs for a total of $900,000. At the same time, the increase in costs is shared by the federal government to the tune of 10%, which is a reduction in the total cost for $312,000, for a total increase of $2.8 million. On the municipal side, we're asking for $1 million increase, and I'm rounding the numbers, not saying the exact numbers. And the main drivers of that is pay and allowance of 2.5%, plus addition of 3 new employees for investigational aid and 2 OCC operators. In the past, we have commissioners guarding the cells. We're replacing with cell guards. As a result, the costs are increasing by $229,000. Other 2 items are police operational plan. They want to look at a 10-year operational plan. This is an estimate at this point in time. We are budgeting $300,000 and communication plan of $120,000. Overall, other costs related on the municipal side is actually a reduction compared to last year of $76,000. Another reduction is in the outreach program. We haven't started that program. We anticipate it would start sometime partway through the program, so we didn't anticipate all the costs going to be incurred in the new year. As a result, we're reducing it by $100,000. Other costs for radio tech risk managers of $192,000 for a total of $3.9 million increase for 2024. So going on to the total budget, in 2023, our budget is $43.8 million. We're asking for $3.9 million increase, going to $47.75 million for 2024. That's the total budget for RCMP. And if you look at the proportionate share for Dieppe, last year was 18.29%, going up to 18.5%. 18.29 represents $8,017,000, going to 18.5% in 2024 represents $8,839,000, increase of $822,000 year over year. That is my presentation.
Before I get to this next slide, I just want to say a little bit more about the additional 4 officers and the additional 3 civilian roles. The CRPA originally was going to ask for 10 additional police officers for 2024. We're not at this point. We don't have the data to support that. We're still working on our key performance indicators. Actually, key performance indicators have been developed. We're just waiting on data now, but we don't have data to support for asking 10 additional police officers quite yet. But we've had a population growth and in our community over the last several years, and we haven't been keeping up with the increase of the police force. And so for this point, we want to continue to increase the size of our police force strictly based on, or partly based on population growth, and also some success in our community policing unit and the work that the extra demands that are going on with respect to that. The 3 additional civilian roles are 2 for the OCC or 911 center and 1 as an investigational aid to help police officers be able to do their work. I show you a graph here or a chart just showing our police numbers over the last number of years. Where we are today. So that top line that's police officers working. This does not include people that are on leave. So the next 2 rows are the number of people on leave, if you will. So we overstaff so that we can plan for when people are on leave. We only pay for that top line right there. So this year we have 152 police officers. And we're looking to increase that to 156 police officers for next year. That's the end of my presentation. I pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Moore and Mr. Jamula. Is there a question? Est-ce qu'il y a des questions de la part des membres?
Do any councillors have any questions?
Un instant.
Just a moment.
Madame Godbout.
Councillor Godbout. Thank you very much. First, I have a point of clarification, and then I'll have a question. I'd like to, well, I mentioned actually last week during our public meeting, I spoke about a public report, a report that was made on services that are available in the region. So the report was made public last week. There were recommendations in there. So I simply want the public to understand this. This budget does not consider what the council could work on in the coming weeks, because we still need to evaluate the report and look into it. So this budget does not consider additional requests that could be made with regard to the CRPA after examining the report. I simply wanted that to be clear for councillors and for members of the public. So the tri-communities will keep deliberating on this report. And now I'd like to come back to my question. Thank you very much for your presence and for this excellent presentation. With regard to the projected numbers and budgets, one of the things that can be difficult from one year to the next is to see what the trends are in budgets for policing services. I wonder, in your preparation of budgets, do you evaluate over 3 years? Do you forecast over 3 years? And could we have that information in following years so that we can have all the information when we deliberate about budgets?
I think the simple answer is we do have a forecasting over the next few years. We don't usually provide that to the public, but I think we can look to provide that in the future. It's just something we haven't done in the last number of years, but definitely. And one of the things we're hoping, of course, is that the police operations plan is really going to help start us focusing on planning 8 to 10 years out, so that it's not, oh, we're just planning next year or planning for the next 2 or 3 years. No, we really want to get more of a longer term plan. And we look forward to, as as a CRPA in looking at the police study that was done. A reminder, we weren't, the CRPA was not a client of the police study, and so we just got it a couple weeks ago as a CRPA. So we're actually looking forward to your responses to the, all three municipalities on that, and that'll help us in our police operations plan, I think, as well.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Leboutier. Yes, thank you very much. I have a question that's similar.
I believe 2 years ago you had submitted on a 3-5-year forecast, and I think that it's important for us when we look at budget that we can compare apple to apple. So just your highlight, it would be a lot beneficial for us to see what was 2003, what's looked, and for the city, in order to plan, we also need to plan our budget. So in order to at least a minimum of 3 years down the road,
sure.
Of course, there's changes, but what does it look like?
Right.
So for us, in order to anticipate, a better budget session. So thank you. And I had one question.
Sure.
And it could be, it's just when I was looking at it, is that on your budget, you had it's not a big increase, but I was just curious in terms of, you had Garda as a world security, there's an increase of over 2 something. What is the difference comparable? Is it because of the new building, or what is that cost associated to?
So we had used Garda as an additional security services. I wonder if Chuck is a better person, or do you want to answer that? I wonder if Chuck, if you could answer what Garda did for us.
Quand ce qu'on a passé c'était le corps commissionnaire qu'on avait avant.
The commissioner that we had before, we had issues in the cells. So then we had to, instead of having just 1 guard for every shift, we needed to go to 2 guards. So that's what the difference is. And, our guards weren't staying, they weren't being paid highly enough. There was a lot of turnover, whereas we need some kind of security. So we had to increase salaries, and we had to add somebody so that we have 2 people per shift, and this is a safety issue. Last year, we had 1 regular member and a guard, so that was even more expensive. So that's why the costs decreased last year. That's with regard to cells. But yes, so if we have 2 guards per shift, yes, the price has increased, and that's what explains the budget. Thank you. Councillor Berido.
Just a simple question, Mr. Don. When you're talking about the staff that are on sick leave, I assume you're looking. I thought I understood that you have to hire additional people to replace.
So we plan ahead for people who may be on different types of leave. So we hire around 20 or 25 extra for our police force, assuming that and that's based on historical data, that there will be a percentage of people on different types of leave, so that we make sure that we are having this year 152, but we only pay for 152. We don't pay for the people that are on leaves.
Okay, because I assumed that those people are under the insurance claim.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il y avait d'autres questions?
Thank you very much. Any other questions now? If you'll allow me, yes. Can you share your forecasts for the end of year this year? Do we have an estimate? Do we know where CRPA stands financially at the end of this fiscal year? I know that you work until April 1st, so it's not the same budget dates as Dieppe. Can you tell us where you stand?
So we are anticipating to meet the budget that we presented. However, at the end of August, we are under budget. We have other costs that are coming in the future for the remaining 4 months, so we think we will meet the budget.
So you're not planning to have a surplus on any sort?
Based on today's numbers, no.
Okay, thank you.
OK. Alors, merci beaucoup pour la présentation.
All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation.
It looks like there's no further questions. So thank you for your presence again, and have a good night.
Okay, I'm not going to touch this.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prochaine présentation. Est-ce que c'est
We can now move to our next presentation,
Transaqua avec
Transaqua, with Sharon Doucette
Victor Cormier?
and Victor Cormier.
On l'a fait avancer 2 jours. Avec les flèches ici.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Good evening. Good evening.
C'est ça. Bonsoir, Monsieur le maire, je pense.
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, he's online. And councillors.
Je m'appelle Victor Cormier.
My name is Victor Cormier.
Je suis le représentant
I
de la ville de Dieppe pour
represent the city of Dieppe
l'actionnaire
on
Transaqua.
the
Je vais juste présenter
Wastewater
les
Commission.
membres ici ce
So
soir.
I'll just be presenting the members who are with me here today. So a new colleague who has just been named by the city of Dieppe, Mona Lisa Lavallée.
Je l'ai juste rencontré ce soir.
This is the first time I'm meeting her tonight. So
On a aussi
we also
Michel Desjardins,
have Michel Desjardins.
président conseil
He's the president of the board,
aussi pour la ville de
and he's a commissioner as well for the city of Moncton.
Puis on a
And
Sharon Doucette,
Sharon Doucette is here. She is the director of finances and administration at Transaqua.
pour ce soir, la présentation,
So
je vais
for
la
this
faire en
evening,
deux parties.
I'm going to be dividing this presentation in two. I'll do the beginning, and then Sharon will come
Vers le côté
to talk about the financial aspects.
OK. Sur l'ébauche du budget d'exploitation et
So
d'immobilisation
the
pour
draft operating and capital budget for 2024.
So, on va discuter de notre
So we'll be talking about our mission and our vision,
discuter aussi de nos priorités
our budget priorities for
2024.
2024.
On va aussi discuter des
We'll
ébauches
also be
du
talking
budget
about the
d'exploitation
draft operating
et
budget and
d'immobilisation
the draft capital budget for that same year.
Pour ce qui touche de notre mission, nous
Now,
aurons
in
aussi
terms of our
besoin
mission,
de recueillir
Transaqua, we are there to collect and treat wastewater in a reliable, cost-efficient, and environmentally responsible manner.
En tant que notre vision,
Now, what's our vision?
un intendant
It's to be an outstanding environmental steward, supporting regional planning, economic development, and quality of life for the communities of Moncton, Dieppe, and Riverview.
Pour nos priorités budgétaires, que je
Now,
vais
in terms of our priority, and we'll be talking about that a little later, they are as follows:
assurer la prestation des services
to
rentables
ensure cost-effective and sustainable delivery of services while also ensuring an appropriate unit rate for 2024.
puis pour cette année,
And so for this year, the rates have been frozen again, and we've been able to maintain them frozen until or since 2016. But with the interest rate costs, the rising cost of living, the members of the board,
ont toujours voulu maintenir que les taux
despite all those, the board has wanted to remain the rates. We wanted the rates to remain stable. And it's our planning that has allowed us to maintain the rates at what they are right now, again this year. So we want to develop energy management plan. So one thing that's happening is, well, actually there's two things that are happening. So wastewater treatment and composting. And so as the population grows, there is more waste to treat, and that it's quite it takes quite a bit of energy, and that's what we're trying to look at managing to keep our costs down. Implementing recommendations from the regional wastewater and combined sewer overflow strategy. That's another priority. So that might be a little bit less applicable to Dieppe, but in the older section of Moncton, wastewater and rainwater are combined together. And what does that mean? That means that when you know, when there's are things that like a lot of rain, like we have today, it takes a lot of energy. It uses the equipment up. So what we want to do is to separate those two systems. We don't want the rainwater system and the sewer system combined. Continue engaging our stakeholders by clearly communicating our message. That's something that we need to keep doing. You know, a lot of people think that, you know, every time they take a shower or they flush the toilet, the water just goes and there are no issues. But all of that water, that doesn't disappear. It comes to our wastewater treatment system. So grease and household wipes, those types of things can break our equipment and damage our equipment. So that's what we try to keep the public informed so that they know what these items do. Additional capital projects for the compost facility, including solar power. So we're working on to complement the energy that it takes to do the composting with solar power sources. Continue with the asset replacement program to replace high-risk assets, and it's what I said before. As the population grows, as the number of residents grow, also as the number of businesses grow, and there are factories that are coming to our city, that creates a higher risk in terms of the infrastructure. So even if we plan, you know, like in the next 5 years, we have to replace this equipment, those are forecasts that we do, but sometimes things have to be bumped up because there are increases sometimes that make it so that we have to replace things more quickly. So it's a fluid situation. Working with municipalities to decrease the frequency and severity of wastewater contaminants within the sewer system. So what I'm talking about here is that the sewer system is a biological system, and sometimes what happens is that there are products that are put into the sewer system that will kill bacteria, and that's happened a couple times last week. It's something that's going to continue to arrive, but it's something that's very expensive to repair because it throws the whole system out of balance, and we have to re-establish the system. So that's something that we're working with the municipalities on. We want to inform new companies coming to set up so that they know that if you throw oil or certain products into the sewer system, that harms the system. All right, so that's the end of my part of the presentation. I can answer any questions, but or later on, but right now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Sharon.
Good evening. Hi. I'm going to go through our 2024 operating and capital budget. I just want to highlight the slides that you're seeing are in PSAS format, and that includes our amortization in our operating expenses. So the amortization and surplus does get deposited into a capital reserve, but I wanted to give that highlight before we get into the slides. So 2 weeks ago, we met with the CFOs from the municipalities. There was concern about our excess cash. So as I'm running through the slides here, I'll address the cash flow. It's not on a slide, but I want to make sure that we address the concerns that the CFOs had. So our budget comparisons on this slide, it shows the 2023 budget, where we're projecting 2023 to end, and our budget for 2024. So already you can see that we're projecting that our projected surplus and our operating expenses right now we're projecting to be $1.3 million higher. There's a couple of reasons attributing to the reason why we're projecting $1.3 million higher. So now that we have a fully functioning plant, since the upgrade has been complete, we're seeing the cost of operating the plant increasing. We're just seeing an overall general increase in operating the plant. But what we're also seeing is moving from a primary treatment to a secondary biological treatment. We're seeing the costs increase from that. So the intent of the original design of the plant was intended to be a 50% increase in biological solids. But what we're seeing is a 72% increase. So that's attributing to the reason why we're seeing increased costs. And that's a lot to do with population growth and, as Victor mentioned, solids or contaminants coming into our plant or whatever. So that attributes to some of the increases that we're seeing in the solids. I'll get into that more as we get through the operating expenses. This slide here is our 2024 to 2027 operating or financial summary. So it shows our revenue, our expenses, and what our projected surplus is. So this is at the 210 rate. And I want to highlight our revenue source is through user fees and through our revenue that we make on our interest income. There's not any other really source that we have revenue come from. We don't have access as municipalities due to gas tax or FCM grants or any of that. So what we make through user fees and through interest income is basically what we have. So our expenses is basically based on what we project our expenses with the increase of the expenses that we have. I should also note, because we have a surplus or an excess of biosolids, late last year, we also purchased a facility in Kent County to take some of our capacity. So because we have done that, you also see an increase in operating costs for that new facility. So you're seeing an increase in our operating expenses year over year. So our revenue for 2024 is broken down as such. Our user fees have increased by $738,000, and we're seeing that because of regional growth. Our equivalent units have increased by 3,515 year over year. Our interest income is pretty much locked in, so we're consistent year over year with that because we have the GICs that produce the interest income, so that'll be pretty steady. And our septic hauler and compost income, we don't normally see much of a change. It's pretty consistent year over year. For our interest income, our septic and compost income. So the operating expenses, because of the biosolids, we're seeing an increase in polymer, our water, electricity, fuel, the trucking of the biosolids, and bark. So the whole process of us receiving more biosolids or producing more biosolids is increasing our overall costs. So that is attributed to the growth. What we're also seeing is because while we're during the phase of upgrading the plant, there was a lot of maintenance stuff. It was more reactive happening at the time because we didn't have the resources because everybody's kind of focused on the plant upgrade. So what we're seeing is in 2024, we want to get back to a preventative maintenance plan so we can extend the life of our useful assets. So we want to be proactive. So you're going to see more costs in contracted and maintenance in general. So last year, after we finished our budget, we got our insurance premiums. So that had increased. In our budget, we didn't have the fact that it was an 8% increase overall. Again, this year, we're seeing another 8% increase in insurance premiums. So that equates to $124,000 year over year for insurance. We are also adding a 1.4 FTE. So that's a communications person that will come in and help guide our strategic message and our messaging as a commission and as a Transaqua as a whole. So that person will help us there. Also, because of the biosolids, we need more help with the trucking aspect. So we have 800 casual hours for a truck driver. And then when you look at our professional and consulting fees, that aligns with our capital plan. So we have feasibility studies that'll need to be done and condition assessments and our regional wastewater strategy. So that'll end up having us more costs towards consulting and professional fees there, but that aligns with our capital plan. So this slide here, this one here is basically showing from the rate from 210 to at the inception at the rate of 2016 to 2027. But I want to show in this slide is how the history looks compared to the future. So although we have the same rate, you can see that there was more surplus and less expenses, but then you see the growth in expenses and the surplus decreases. But what I want to say is also part of that, the surplus and the amortization would be moved into a capital fund. So what that was able to help us do back in 2005, the commission had the foresight then to start raising the rates from 110 to 210. And by doing that, gave us ability to fund this upgrade. But what we want to do is have rate stabilization, plan farther enough in the future so we don't have to fluctuate the rates. So I think that shows kind of the fact that, if we start decreasing or playing with the rates, then we might have to increase greater in a short amount of time to fund our capital program. So getting into our capital budget, I'm going to focus mainly on asset replacement. So 69% of next year's capital budget is around asset replacement. So some condition assessments have been made, and that focus is around high risk and moderate risk assets that need to be replaced. So what we're doing is putting the efforts next year to make sure that we address all our high and moderate risk assets. So this slide here shows our 5-year capital plan and gives some highlights of what our focus will be over the next 5 years. And the 15-year capital forecast is where I want to spend the remainder of my presentation. So the concern around cash flow. So basically we have $27 million locked in GICs. So when you start looking at, okay, if we're adding amortization and adding surplus, and even if you do quick math, saying $5 million a year for 15 years, that's $75 million. You're coming to us and saying $60 million is what you're spending over 15 years. Sorry. So there's an offside. But what this capital plan is, the forecast, is what our knowns are. It's the unknowns that are not on this plan that we have to plan for. So if we look from 2024 to 2030, there's $50 million that we need. So at the end of 2030, we would still have $22 million in our bank account. But then when you start looking at 2031 and 15 years past then, there's a lot of assets and asset replacement that got pushed just past the 15-year plan. So when I did the comparison, okay, what's just out on the horizon from 2031 to 2045, there's 50 million. So we need to do physical asset condition assessments on those assets. More than likely, there'll be quite a bit of assets come back in. Sorry. So that's part of the reason that it's not on our capital plan yet, because we don't know what those assets or the condition of those are. In addition to that, we have energy management. What does energy management look like in the future? If we have to go with an anaerobic digester, which has a price tag of $30 million, or if we're going with heat recovery, or if we do solar fields, whatever the regional plan is going to be, those discussions only really start in December of this year. So we don't know what our role is in the energy management plan. So potentially there's $35 million there. And on top of that, we have CSO pumping stations that we know we're going to have to put in. Those got pushed out. Eventually they're going to have to come back in. So we know of 3 locations where there's going to be a CSO pumping station, and we need to put one at the treatment plant. So we have 4. Again, another $30 million. But that doesn't address the elephant in the room, and that's population growth and what that's going to do to our plant. So in the inception of the upgrade of the plant, the intent was 2043 for an expansion or upgrade at that time. But what we're seeing it already through the biosolids. If we have to expand our plant before 2043, we have to have the resources available for that. So in 2030, that's when we engage our consultants and start doing more of analysis on population growth and capacity. With all that said, again, what does it do to our 2 compost facilities that we own? Do we have the room for, or do we have to expand our locations to have the excess capacity of the biosolids taken care of? So those are all the highlights I want to highlight about the unknowns. It's hard to put it in a capital plan right now when we don't have the solid answers, but I wanted to address them. So that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have questions? Madame Leboutier.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for addressing the points on cash flow. And I think that I can't speak for everyone, but when you look at the forecast and the cash flow, yes, you're going into 2040, but we still have to address that in 5 years from now, calculation, you're going to have a surplus just in 5 years accumulated over $60 million.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot of money.
We understand that.
And you can answer, when we have capital asset, usually in a new project, right? There's usually probably at 80% of the time, there's federal money there. Like to come back and say, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be, and then, well, we need that money 100% down in the bank in order to maybe to spend in 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I've addressed it last year again, I think that the commission needs to do an analysis, or with the 3 municipalities, is what is it reasonable
Mm-hmm.
to have in a bank for the next, maybe if it's at least a minimum 10 years, there's too many variables over 10 years anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me as a counselor to come and say that we're not cutting, but we have 60 point some million in 5 years from now, I'm certainly not happy with that decision in that sense, because in 5 years, you're going to accumulate that. What in another 10 years? What? So
Well,
that's my analysis on it, and any business or business case, you would have the same scenario, right? Can't anticipate for 20 years down the road. Yes, we have to, but in terms of money-wise right
Mm-hmm.
now, anyway, that is certainly a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have hoped that in the future, that is it, the 210, and probably from my point of view, it's too high.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're accumulating too much too quick right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Conseiller Godette.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. It's sort of on the same question, but you were talking, you had how many million invested?
27 million.
27.
5 million of that is part of our bylaw. We can't take that or
Yep.
use it unless
Okay.
there's something with the tunnel or a catastrophic failure. We have to have that set aside.
So let's say you take that 27 million with all the surplus every year.
Mhm.
Well, do you have an approximate cash on hand now?
Cash on hand, we have just over 4.5 in the bank, and that's all we have access to at this current time. So the projects that we have from now till 2030, the GICs only come due in 2027. So already we're starting some of our very large projects as soon as that money becomes available.
But I mean, that GIC is still cash, it's still sort of money on hand. So what would be your total money on hand now?
Right now, 30 million, just over 30 million.
Okay. I'm sort of leaning to what was just said, that I think it's a lot of money I know the rate's been the same since 2016, but maybe I don't know, something to think about.
Absolutely, and we've had that discussion as a group, and until we do our physical condition assessments and have a real good feeling once the energy management plans, and so this time next year might be a very different conversation, but we have to ensure we feel comfortable with these knowns or unknowns more determined. So starting early next year, now that the plant is up and fully functioning, the goal of the operations team is to get out there and what condition is the conveyance system in, what condition is the tunnel in, and start focusing our efforts on redundancy, because I mean, our infrastructure is critical. If something fails, we have to have that access to that money to make sure that we have it available if we need it for those critical assets. And I mean, until we do those condition assessments, we just don't know what shape it's in. I mean, some of it's been in the ground since the 1980s. So what an environmental condition has affected infrastructure, right? So.
No, and again, with the population going up, I know you're saying it's cost more money, but we're having more money coming in too. So I don't know what the ratio is between the population,
but our
extra population and the infrastructure. How hard is it? Like, is it?
Well, we're seeing it just in the, like, water usage, like just this year up until this point in time, it's over 200,000 over budget because our process is just costing more. And anytime we have these rain situations or like, it's just so much more cost to operate the plant. And I mean, it's a state-of-the-art plant. So last year we might not have realized just how expensive to operate the plant's going to be and what that looks like in the future with the excess coming into it. So we're still getting feelers on, you know, trying to get the bioreactor a certain, just at that right hum there, so there's, you know, it's not producing excess biosolids. I guess I'm not an engineer or anything by any means, but, you know, there's a process in place and there's certain numbers you have to hit to produce the biosolids. So, I mean, we're still getting the hang of it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Conseillère Godbout. Oh, là.
Merci, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. I don't want to repeat what's been said, but I'm going to maybe tackle it from a different perspective and take it out of the financial language, out of the equation. But for me, first of all, I congratulate you on the excellent management and the work that's being done and the emphasis on the infrastructure and protecting it and planning going forward. I think it's a key service that you provide, and so I certainly understand and appreciate the importance of that. I do, what comes across the table here for me when I look at it, when I look at the numbers, they say to me, and then what I'm hearing from you is that there's a very conservative approach taken in the management style of what you're doing. And it's bringing about a significant amount of benefits. And I think what I'm hearing at the table here is there's an interest in having some of those benefits being felt a bit more today, not just for the future. And finding a way maybe of, as we stabilize rates, maybe it's stabilizing them in a way that's adjusting to the realities of what you have today by maybe bringing them down a little bit at a key time when, from a public perspective, that could really be beneficial to the people that you are serving. We're serving them in the infrastructure, but also in the rates that we charge them. So for me, I'm seeing a very conservative approach that I understand. But I also see perhaps a need to stretch yourselves a little bit and get outside of that comfort zone and maybe take on a little bit more risk. And I understand you're going to assess that so that we can get some of the benefits of lower rates to our clients today.
Absolutely.
Even just if it's a little bit, I think we got to move that needle a little bit, because I think, you know, it's a bit, you're living in a little bit too comfortably.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to translate the financial language into more of a management perspective, but that's what I'm hearing and seeing. Okay.
Thank you. Conseiller Brideau.
Thank you. Just something that tweaks me. In your financial summary, I'm looking at 2027, where your revenue is going down instead of growing up. Can you just give me a little briefing on that?
That's the GIC that would be coming due. So we wouldn't have a full year of interest income on that GIC because it comes due in May.
Okay, so basically the revenue of the GIC is included in those revenue as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions ou commentaires?
Any questions or comments? If Mr. Rice was here, I might have asked him, but maybe the president could ask. There was talk about evaluations and future and the evaluations of the infrastructure assets that would allow you to do better planning on a shorter term. So had those, is that work done? Good evening. That work has begun. It's continuing, but it's not done yet. That's the answer. So you're going to be working with the 3 municipalities and to work on your projections with your engineering staff and so forth? Okay. All right. Well, that'll give us a better perspective in the future too as well, where investments are needed and better planning in the longer term. That's the intention, yes. And in parallel, we could also plan maybe our conversations with the other 2 levels of government. So this was a successful project. And just to come back to the question that was asked earlier, at normal times, now, unlike municipalities, Transaqua does not have access to funding from the federal or provincial governments, not like you do. We don't have access to the gas tax, for example. So we're limited in our revenue sources. And I think it's important to mention that, and to clarify that point. And I wanted to emphasize that well. Thank you. I have a question for our financial person, Mr. Thériault. Based on what was presented, do you think that Transaqua will be able to reduce the rates for citizens, or for residents rather? Based on the information that we received today, I think the question was, would we be able to come down from the 210? I think so, but as was mentioned, they are funding 100% of future assets, so they don't know yet what that's going to be after 2030. If those assets are financed with provincial or federal funds, like they won't need all that liquidity. So, and then we'll have to look at lowering the rates at that time. But right now, we still don't know. So they're operating very cautiously, and we'll look at this again next year. All right, thank you for the clarification. All right. If there are no further questions or comments, I would like to thank you for your presentation this evening. And we'll look forward to continuing the thinking about and discussing this topic.
Great, thank you.
I just want to add something. For the questions that you've asked, we're going to take all of that into consideration. We'll be talking about that, and we'll come back to you in the future. All right, thanks. Next presentation, Kodiak Transpo with Angela Alain.
Welcome.
I think so. I can just use the arrows. Okay. Good evening, bonsoir. Thank you very much for spending a few moments on public transit. I have a few slides. I wanted to mention my colleague with me tonight is Bob Bowser. He's our Supervisor of Finance and Administration. Just before I get into the budget slides, these are a few highlights of some programs projects, I should say, that we have planned for next year. You may be already aware of some of them. We're putting cameras on our buses. This is to increase security and safety for passengers. Annunciators are next stop announcements. So this is to help passengers with vision loss or hearing loss. A reloadable bus pass, which is to permit, we'll still have paper passes at retailers, but the reloadable card will allow people to add money to basically like a debit card from their comfort of their home. on an app or their desktop. And we recently had our governance committee meeting where we plan to hold cash fares at $3 and only increase passes by $1 each to keep transit affordable. This slide is, oh, I'm sorry, before I leave that, I just remembered one that was not on here, and I wanted to mention it because it's coming soon, and it's inspired by a great program that you already have here in the city of Dieppe with your under 17 program. So at Kodiak Transpo, we'll be having Moncton and Riverview bus routes. We'll be launching free for under 12. So it's not as expansive as your program, but definitely inspired by yours. And that should be launched in the next couple of months. So it will help all of your citizens with children to travel across the system, across the region. This slide is a historical slide. This is we provide it each year. It depicts our total operating expenses, but this is for the whole tri-community. So this layout you'll see on the next slide, which is much more specific to the city of Dieppe, but we show the year 2022, 2023 budget and actual performance, as well as the 2024 budget. So you can see this, the total cost of the entire operation is 14.9 million on the expense side. This doesn't show the fare box revenue, but we will get into that on the next slide. And this one is specifically for the city of Dieppe. So the column in the far right is the 2024 budget. This has been reviewed with staff, and I'll just go through these various breakdown of how these numbers are derived with the explanation of each category on the far left. So the first line is operations. That and fuel are the largest components of our operation. So that's labor costs in that first line. This increase, you'll see when you look at from 2023 to 2024 that it's increased. This is primarily driven by the increased service hours that you now are operating since September, which you've done to address increased passenger growth, and it's going very well in the last month. The next line down, we have two lines there identifying fuel. So this is diesel. So that first one, it lines up with the 2023 number of 207,000. So this is, up until this point, we have been, how you're paying for fuel is by taking the total liters that are utilized at transit and then dividing them by the number of buses each municipality owns. And that's been done that way for a long time. We've had service agreement discussions with your staff and as well with Riverview, and a more transparent process that's desired, which we're going to implement in 2024, is direct billing on fuel. So this will be the actual consumption in liters that your buses are utilizing at the actual rate that it's charged. And that would be on your monthly invoice, so it's easily trackable and you don't have to wait till year end for any adjustments. So it will benefit you actually. The increase here again is because of the increased service hours, but this new method of direct billing on fuel overall will save you money from how we're doing it in the past. The next line after total expenses, then we have bus maintenance. This is similar how it's always been done. We do a direct billing process on all repairs and labor costs. Basically, it's a shop invoice included with monthly invoices to identify any activity that's happened on the buses. Direct billing on shelter maintenance is similar process. It's done by a third-party contractor, but this is primarily cleaning. And the slight increase here because of planning for potentially adding more shelters next year. Replacement buses, you just purchased your own replacement bus and it has arrived and it's getting ready to go on the road. So this expense has reduced because of your contribution to the fleet with that. When you have 3 buses, you have 4 buses now. 3 of them are on the road almost all the time, 7 days a week. And this fourth bus that you own is like a replacement for when we have repair or maintenance work, preventative maintenance, any activity that happens with the other vehicles. This one would be used as a primary. So the 15,000 that's listed there is only essentially if all of your buses are already utilized or already on the hoist or at a service for some reason. So then that subtotals all the operating expenses, and then we have the fare box, so transit fares. We're projecting 450,000 for next year, as we expect passenger demand to continue to increase. It's definitely on the upswing right now. And I'm going to wrap it up, and you can ask any questions that you wish, but I just wanted to note very successful for September since you added the new trips. Our demand overall in the tri-community is really high, and very positive feedback about that. And I think your staff are doing a very good job to maximize your equipment and make these changes that are quite dynamic to address the growing population. So kudos to you all on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Monsieur Lantaigne.
Councillor Lantaigne?
Bonsoir, Angela.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to see you, Angela. First of all, congratulations for offering free bus trips to children under 12. I think that will really encourage people to use public transit. I have a question now. I'm sure you hear it often. Where are we going to get our first electric bus?
For the city of Dieppe or for Kodiak Transpo?
Well, for Kodiak Transpo, I guess, which we will benefit.
That's right. Well, we have a study that's almost, well, it's finished. It's going to be presented very soon. So the short answer would be probably 2 years from now before you'll see a battery electric bus on the road. But we're definitely, we'll have a plan, a rollout plan, I guess you'd say. We'd like to do a pilot project as our first step. So we really hope we're able to buy one bus. This will be contingent to your earlier conversation. We'll definitely be looking for federal and provincial funding to help support this investment. It's a significant, it's pretty much double the price of a diesel bus. And the timeline for delivery is over a year. So it's not a quick outcome, but it's certainly the right direction. And we're excited to see where, how that will evolve. But it will be for Kodiak Transpo in general, we plan to maximize the life cycle of all the buses we have. So this replacement to go to zero emission vehicles would probably take about 15 years to complete from when it starts. So it'll be a gradual, long-term process.
Yeah, merci.
Merci.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. Next question now. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Well, thank you very much. It's very encouraging. These are great numbers that we see, increased use of transit. It's great news. I would also like to underscore the fact that we can now offer free transit to kids 12 and under in other communities. So congratulations on that. Now my question, how can we promote the habit of taking public transit, especially in youth? I think that it's a great step to offer free rides for children, but how do we promote this?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Well, speaking from an operational perspective, I think the frequency of service is the key. It has to be convenient, but really, we can't be as competitive as people who have their own car. We can't be exactly that fast, but to invest in more equipment, to increase your frequency of service, will definitely make it more appealing for people to not buy a second car and to not always drive their kids to all their activities, but make it, reasonable for the low price that it's offered for and the good environmental choice that it is. That will definitely go a long way. That's what we're seeing in the investments you've already made, and in some of the routes where we've made changes as well in Moncton. when we increase the frequency of service, it's a win because it just attracts new passengers. And right now, there's a real captive audience with the new population that has moved here. They're already familiar with public transit, coming from many cities. So they're already engaged with this whole process. They want to get to work in this manner, and we just need to make it as feasible and convenient as possible.
Oui, absolument. Oui, comme vous avez mentionné, la
Yes,
population.
yes, absolutely. As you've mentioned, immigrant populations, for example, are already used to getting this type of service. So is it us, municipalities and communities, are we the ones who should be promoting this service in schools or elsewhere? I, I, I don't know. I'm just trying to follow up on this because I love this free service. Well, to answer your question, yes, absolutely. I think the municipality could do something to promote bus use with youth and even less young people in order to encourage people to transition. And like Angela said, yes, there's part of it that comes from Kodiak Transpo, but also the municipality has a role to play with promotion of these initiatives. Right, and like we say, there's immigrant population who, and they are used to taking the bus, but we here, and especially youth, they're not as used to taking the bus. It's not a habit for them. So how can we educate them? How can we change habits? And in fact, we have to also say that it's safe. We have CCTV now. It's very interesting. It's certainly on our radar. Great, thank you.
Le prochain, c'est Conseiller
Next,
Cadet.
Councillor Cadet. Well, thank you very much.
Just the last slide there was comparing 222 and 223, and the total wasn't a big difference. And then from 223 to 224, there's almost 265,000.
Yes.
Is that mainly because there's more
Service.
routes?
More trips, yes.
So that's
More frequency of service,
yeah.
more trips on weekends and
Okay.
evenings, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, it's a shift to add more service to the public.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, merci. Conseillère Leboutillier.
Merci beaucoup. Certaines questions ont déjà
Councillor Leboutillier. Yes, thank you. Some of my questions have already been asked and answered. So to not be redundant, I will ask a question. In fact, I'd like to know, with regard to seniors, we know that bus service is free on Wednesdays, and we also offer a reduction on passes of 30 days and less. So from a municipality standpoint or a tri-community standpoint, have we wondered what would the cost be to offer free services for certain people, like maybe 70 years old or older, in order to help seniors cope with growing costs of everything nowadays? Have we looked at this?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I can't answer it directly only because we collect a lot of data on our passengers, but we don't have demographic data. So we do not know exactly the ages of people. We would have count data on Wednesdays, which we could anecdotally presume is driven higher because of people over 65 are allowed to travel for free. So we would have to do a survey in order to compile some type of a projection of what that would entail. I haven't looked, we haven't looked at that, I don't believe, as a transit system in the past, but it's something that could be brought up through our Transit Governance Committee as well, as there's counselors from all three communities on that, and fares are part of their terms of reference, so this would fall under their powers.
OK, merci. Moi, je lance le défi aussi à...
Thank you very much. I'd like to put the challenge to our municipality as well. I think it's something we should think about for our residents to see what the cost would be for potential lost revenue, and would this have a big impact? And could this be something that we could offer to seniors and citizens in our region? Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Very interesting question. And it made me think of my own question. Would it be difficult for us to collect information on demographics, who buys passes, and even for just in general bus use.
Sorry, I just had to confer with Bob on what we have on that. So yes, he said we have the actual sales of each of the types of passes by location, by community. So I guess from where they purchase them, we could infer where they may live.
Okay.
We don't actually ask them where they live,
Okay.
as in terms of collecting demographic information again.
Okay. Mais sur l'âge des
But
personnes
the age, so the age of people buying passes.
passes, would it be difficult for us to kind of collect the data of that?
We wouldn't have any data on age. Anyone can go buy a pass at Shoppers Drug Mart or any of the other outlets, and for their grandchild or for their child that's a student, for example.
Yeah.
So the retailers don't check
Yeah.
age. There's no mechanism for us to verify the age of who's actually using the pass, other than for eligibility when a bus driver checks when they get on
Yeah.
to verify they've paid the right fare.
Okay.
I think it would be probably a survey that we would have to do
Yeah, sure.
with our passengers.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. I see that there's no other questions.
Thank you very much.
So it was a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Okay, on en avance.
Okay, so we are a little bit ahead. No, actually, mistake. We are late. We're a little late. So we can now move to the next presentation, Expansion Dieppe with Louis Godbout.
Perfect. Merci.
Bonsoir et bienvenue.
Good evening and welcome. Well, good evening, councillors. I see that the mayor is absent. Oh, he's online. Ah, okay, that's good to know. He's listening to us. I hope that my voice will last, but I have backup with me in case it doesn't. My voice, I'm having throat issues. So thank you for receiving us this evening. We're here to talk about our funding request, but at the same time, we're going to take an opportunity to show you what the funds are being used for. And I'll try to do that quickly because I know that we're already late. So first of all, I would like to point out the people from the board who are here today. Our Chairman Adèle Gonzi, our Secretary Treasurer, and on the city side, we have our Councillor José Turgeon-Roy, Councillor Godette, and Madame Angèle and Mr. Melançon, who are already on our board. We thank them for their volunteering for this board. And your worship, yes, his worship as well. So very quickly, our mandate is to ensure the city's continued growth by increasing its tax base in a balanced manner. And we do that by offered serviced land available for entrepreneurs and investors in the industrial park, achieving objectives to enable real estate development, and stimulating and promoting an innovative, diversified, and prosperous business environment. And what do we mean by balanced? That means that we want to be in line with municipal and economic development priorities. We also seek to maintain the ratio between residential and non-residential projects. And you'll see when I show you the data permit that it'll be difficult to maintain that ratio, but we try to, we do a pretty good job of keeping within that ratio. And then it also means diversification of economic sectors. Our vision vision. It is to be a strategic partner to the business community and ecosystem. We want to add value-added services and innovative services while diversifying the local economy while contributing to a thoughtful and sustainable development of the region. We have also become a benchmark organization in Eastern Canada's economic development community. Our mission is to work with entrepreneurs, developers, and strategic partners because they are the ones who are investing in our communities. It's not us. Our fundamental values: excellence, integrity, inclusion, innovation, and pride. We want to show pride in our Francophone and Acadian heritage. And those are the same values as the city of Dieppe has. Our strategic plan, and you've already seen this, it hasn't changed this year. I'll go quickly through them just to, I know that you have another meeting after this one, so. But our strategic plan ends in 2024. So that year, we'll be looking at developing a new strategic plan for the next 5 years. That will come into effect in 2025. Here's our board of directors. We had our AGM in June, and so those are our members. I'll just go quickly through that because I named the people that are here this evening, and our team. So there are 6 people that support me every day in our office. In terms of our tax base, and I say that because we are working, our role is to increase the tax base for the city. So you'll see a nice big increase in the later years, $4.2 million in 2023 and 4.4 when we include the new territories that were amalgamated with the city of Dieppe starting January 1st, 2023. So we're seeing some nice growth there, 15%, and that's before the new borders, and 19% after the addition of the new territory. So it's quite impressive. All right, building permits now. At the end of September, we were already $20 million over the record that was reached last year, and that had broken the record for the previous year. So we're in an extraordinary situation in that regard. And now I'm going to hand things off to Robert, who will be doing a few slides so that I can take a bit of water. Reinforcements have arrived. All right. So just to continue, in terms of our investments for 2023 and business permits, and these are actuals. So, and then we have the tax, for municipal tax additional. Now, in non-residential, that's where we're seeing the most growth. We're looking at $43 million in building permits in September. In terms of residential construction, 41 million, and multi-residential, which includes mixed-use buildings, we're looking at $55 million for a total of $139 million as of September. Now, in terms of taxes, property taxes, 1.03 million, and what's for non-residential, and that is the fruit of a lot of construction that's been going on in previous years, and that's been completed.
OK, donc, donc la diapo ici, je vais vous expliquer vite.
In this, I just want to explain this slide. So in black, you see the forecasts, and blue, that's the additional tax, the property tax that comes back to the city. And that's land belonging either to Expansion Dieppe or the city of Dieppe. So you'll see in 2023, still expecting a bit of investment with a client that we're working with. In 2024, we see something that we saw in 2024, maybe higher, a bit higher. And then for 2025, things are looking up. And I don't know how to say this in French, but it's some very interesting figures for 2025.
Alors, certains accomplissements majeurs qui ont
So some of our achievements in 2023. So we are working on 2 permanent signs at the end of the year. In the industrial park, 2 plots were sold. There are 3 plots where we're still in discussion, and 5 plots that we talked about earlier and that are under construction. In the business park, we have 1 completed project and 2 pieces of land are still under construction. And in the downtown area, we sold a piece of land to the downtown area, so there will be development on that land. And we see a picture of that here. We're expecting that in next spring. Other accomplishments during the year, we're going to be working on our strategic plan. This is the last year of our old plan. We have a service agreement with the city of the city of Dieppe. Now, our work with the city, our relationship with the city has always been clearly defined, but now we have clarified. We put that all on paper, so it'll be easier in the future if there are changes that happen, if people go and retire. And the expansion Dieppe banquet was held at the Uniplex for the first time, and we see the image here. So there were 360 guests, and it was a great evening. And we're working on document management with the city. How do we file? How do we manage our files? So we're doing a pilot project with the wisdom of the city and other partners. And then this year and next year, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. So expansion Dieppe was established in 1973. And then the following year, the province gave us our incorporation paper. So we have activities this year to acknowledge and to mark that 50th anniversary. Now, in terms of investment opportunities, this is a look at where the money is going to go. So in the industrial park, there are acquisitions worth $1.1 million that we're looking to do. I don't think we're going to get all of them done, but that's what we budgeted for. Permanent signs. We have 3 signs that we want to do over 2 years, but we hope to get 2 of them set up this year, maybe 1 this year and then 2 next year. In terms of expansion of the aviation sector, phase 2B, we're hoping to start that work. The city is helping us with engineering. We have land acquisitions that we want to do worth about $500,000. And we hope to conduct a project on Benjamin Street that's worth $750,000. In terms of the business park now, there is an acquisition that we're looking worth $135,000. There's an environmental impact study for the business park. There's a design of plans and RFPs that will be postponed till next year, depending on the results of the environmental impact study. And then once that work is done, we will have to do the construction work. And that's why I left a question mark here. We don't know when that work is going to be done and what the costs will be. We have estimates from a few years ago, but we'll be looking at that once we've completed the environmental impact study. And environmental impact study, there's been a change in the provincial system, and that's what kind of brought about the change in our plans on our side. In terms of the downtown area, we are looking at acquisitions worth $3.5 million. And there is an expression of interest for the Gauvin block worth about $15,000 that we're looking to do. Now, there are some challenges on the horizon as well. We're trying to kind of look at how we're going to work with that. But in the figures that I'm going to be showing you, we have available serviced plots, but there's not a lot of them. And the delays are due to issues with the province. So some of the work in the industrial park has begun, but we're still waiting for the road portion investment. So we're doing everything we can to kind of advance this project, but so that could change our figures for land sales next year. There is also a change in regulations governing the wetlands. We are also in consultations. We're ready to go with a bid where we're working with the engineering department, but it's been more than a year that we've been waiting. So if we add that to the 5 years that we've already been waiting, that results in a 6-year delay. We hadn't planned on that. So, and then there are challenges as well with the NB Housing Corporation. So innovative projects that the city developed with us, with really interesting economies of scale. There was a great collaborations between officials, but we were not able to get a final improvement. So we lost another year with that, and possibly 2. And then, of course, inflation costs will have risen. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of the things that we're dealing with respect to our work for the city. I just wanted to give you, now you didn't get this slide, I just dreamed this up on the weekend and I added it today, but these are actual numbers. So what I'm showing you here on the left-hand side is the funding that we received, the total funding from the city from 2021, including our request or application for 2024. There haven't been increases in the last 4 years. So with this year, that is almost $200,000 less than if we had kind of followed the increases in inflation. So yes, it's a big, we're asking you for a big increase, but in reality, it's $200,000 less than if we had kind of taken into account inflation. So I just wanted to put things in perspective. And so here is why we're here tonight. We're asking for funds so that we can respect the service agreement that we have with the city and that we can fulfill our obligations. So we've had an increase in fixed costs, mostly our salaries and benefits due to inflation, and then the rest are minor issues, minor increases. So we're looking at a difference between $64,000. So compared to 2023 and 2024, it's an increase of about $63,000. In terms of variable costs, there's a bigger difference, and most of that is due to the repurchase of land, $100,000 that we're planning for next year, and a one-time request for $55,000 to do our 50th anniversary events and celebrations. In terms of our priority areas and others, there is a bit of a decrease, and that's a combination of a few things. So there are $50,000 additional for the preparation of the strategic plan. that we'll have to prepare in 2024 so that that will be ready for 2025. And there is a $90,000 reduction from 2023 because of the signs. So now we may not be able to get to finalize one of the signs, so we might have to postpone it to the next year. And then there's also the inflation and various other factors in there. So that gives us a total budget, an operational and development budget of $3.9 million. Now, in our other revenues, we have seen a slight increase of about $120,000 on sale of lands and the benefits that flow from that. And then in terms of our development projects, there are still losses that we're incurring this year, and that's because of the investments on the land that we're looking to buy with a view to future development. So our request or ask for the city is $1.366 million compared to $1.1 million in 2023. And I also always point out the monies that we give back to the city through either through services or for the reimbursed debentures, income tax, leases, and infrastructure as well. And the permanent signed as well. And once it's there, it'll be there forever. So that those are things that are for the city. So my voice is still with me. I'm very happy. I will just move to the next slide now. And we are now ready to take your questions. All right. Are there any questions around the table? Councillor Lanting. Thank you. Thank you, Louis. Thank you for the presentation. It was my pleasure. All right, my question is, could we go back to page 60, or the page dealing with the ratios on business? No, the distribution between residential and non-residential. All right. We've always been above the 30% mark for non-residential, and that's excellent. And now we see that going down, and I understand that it's due to the strong increase in the population in recent years. Is that what explains that difference? Yes. So I have two questions for you. First, what is the ideal ratio that you're aiming for? Well, in what I was explained, and there's as a rule of thumb, and now this might have changed, but is the ideal ratio is 60-40. All right, so there's the ratio is, the non-residential ratio is going down, and I think it's due to population growth. So we have work to do in the non-residential sector. Yeah, and that's why I'm quite afraid. It's hard to say, did we miss opportunities? Had we had more land to sell, would we have? But well, our phase 2 is not there. We're not ready to sell that land yet there. So, all right. So the challenge is the availability of land. Yes. Yeah, this is the first year that our figures for land sales, we won't meet them. Now in the coming weeks, if we can't get the permits or the approvals, and it's not, that's something that is not within the purview of the people around this table here, but once construction begins and the bids are out, we can pre-sale pre-sell land, but up until that point, we can't. So there's a risk there. Yes. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you. All right, it was basically the same type of question. I have two questions actually. Like Councillor Lantaigne, you know, I see that there's a reduction in terms of commercial figures. So are you going to be looking at that when you develop your strategy in 2024? When we develop our land, how can we spur growth in that sector? Is that something that you're looking at currently? Well, we have a good rate of progress, but it's just that residential growth is so strong that, you know, we can't follow that rhythm. Now, in terms of what can be done in the industrial, we don't have any land left in the industrial park, so that's another challenge. We don't have money yet to go and develop that land. We're still waiting for the environmental study. So if it's positive, that might lead to things being done very quickly and ways to find funding for that, but it's not yet on the table. And I don't think that the city has set aside money for that in the next year or two, maybe on the longer term. But and then in terms of the downtown area, again, the province played a trick on us and it's delayed us. We were ready to go out to bids to relocate the 10 units, and that would have allowed us to make very attractive land available to the private sector. But again, we're being delayed by decisions made by the province. So we can't get positive, we're not getting positive answers. All right, perfect. My second question is this. Will we be seeing an impact on the services of expansion Dieppe in 2024 or 2025? Are you expecting, you know, in terms of the new Economic Development Commission, will that have an impact on you? That's a very good question. So the Regional Service Commission is right at the start. We don't know how it's going to be structured. Yes, people are there that are from the older organization or the former organization, but it's not clear yet how that's going to operate. I think that and maybe the CAO could correct me here, but I think that the services are complementary to what we're trying to do and what our role is. I think it's complementary, but in terms of promoting the economic region in the southeast New Brunswick, if they if they don't get into gear, it's clear we'll lose opportunities. So opportunities, New Brunswick, you know, sells the province and regions, but they need an ally in each economic region. And there are only 5 of those regions in the province. So we have to look at that aspect. So we'll have to look at this, how that organization is structured. So it remains to be seen yet. All right, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. Thank you. I'm just curious. If I understand, all our commercial land behind the airport, you know, where we're kind of reaching the end, there's not a lot left. Well, we have deposits and intentions on all the land that we own. All right, well, in terms of the lack of land, or can we develop on the other side of the highway? The part that goes towards Shediac? Has that been looked at? That's a good question. We're going to be going out on bids to redo the master plan for the industrial park. So that the plan was done in the 90s before the airport terminal moved to where it is now. And then every 10 years, there was an update that was done for the next development phase. So now, with the new limits that the city added 4 or 5 years ago and the restructuring that was done last year, and with a host of other factors that have to be taken into consideration, because the master plan is already dates quite a bit. Those are questions that'll have to be answered so in the next year, I'll be able to answer you, give you a better answer, if everything goes well. All right, thank you. Mr. Thériault, did you have something to say? Well, my question is with respect to the budget request. Expansion Dieppe came to the table last year, and there was a forecast deficit of about $65,000. So to not increase the ask for the city, but that money was going to be taken from unreserved funds. And that the unreserved funds are surpluses that Expansion Dieppe has generated over the years, where they didn't use 100% of the money that was given by the city to the Dieppe. So that fund stands at about $1.3 million. So my question is, why aren't you following the same principle as last year, and to keep the ask for the city the same, and to take the difference from the non-reserved fund or unreserved fund? All right, I'm going to ask for our Secretary Treasurer to answer that question. I'm going to ask for her help. But basically, if we look at the projects that we're planning for development and operations, at one point we won't have any liquidity, and that can happen very quickly if we don't have any land sales. But Jessica, I'm going to ask her to come and help me with the books there. I'm an engineer. I'm not very great with numbers. Good evening, everyone. So yes, we do have an unreserved FRIT of about $1.3 million, as Stéphane has just said. In 2023, we expect $155,000 in loss. So that'll come from that unreserved fund. But the development fund used the operational fund to support purchase of land and development. And in 2023, we are expecting another loss of $1 million. So we have a lack of liquidity, and that's why we're not going into the unreserved fund for the 2024 budget. Does that answer your question? In part, maybe we should meet about that and look at that question in greater depth, because I have a number of other questions, but I don't want to ask them right now. Okay, thank you. If I can add to that, this is exactly what we need to do, because in our real estate development projects, we started doing projections of the long-term funding that we'd need and midterm, and we have to go a little further in that now. Stéphane was on the finance committee and he helped us a lot. So there's been a bit of work done on that already. So we have to look at that, because if there are investment opportunities that arrive, I want the funds to be planned in advance, and I want to know how we can use them. And the city wants the same thing too, in terms of they want to make sure that the public money is used well. So we have a bit of work to do in the coming weeks and coming months to look at how do we deal with that aspect of our commitment, and how do we get land in response to the questions asked by other councillors. So I just wanted to specify that we'll be rediscussing this work. Right. All right, if there are no further questions, thank you very much for the presentation, and we'll see where things go. All right, thank you for your trust in us, and we're working to make progress for the city. All right, we have 2 more presentations. Do you want to continue? Is everybody okay? Do we need a break? 5 minutes? All right, we'll come back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Bonsoir. Maintenant, on est
Good
rendu à la
evening again. We can now go to the next presentation from Pro Kids, and we have Christian Godet with us. Thank you so much. And let me turn on your mic. Thank you, and thank you so much for having us here this evening. I can start with the presentation directly. We are here tonight with regard to the implementation of Act 1 of our strategic plan. For this, we need your help. As the previous speaker just mentioned, we are here again in the context to discuss funding, but we want to insist on keeping the funding, but under a new formula. So allow me to explain what I mean. Now for the context. Well, Pro Kids helps young people in the community who are aged 2 to 18 years old. It helps them fund different activities, whether it's cultural or sporting activities, scouts, and so on and so forth. So we pay their fees to those activities for youth from low-income families. The organization was launched in 2008. It was a community-based program, and the way we worked back then and up until recently is that we had an employee. The employee was paid by the city of Dieppe, Maryse Cormier. You might have had the opportunity to meet her. She worked with us for 21 hours a week, and she took care of the entire organization, whether it be memberships, communications with different community organizations in order to promote the program. And one of the things that Sonia Babino has done since the retirement is there's a component of helping those families, helping to orient them in the right direction, explaining, for example, what sports and cultural activities we have in our community. That can take a lot of time. So per year, we have 300 to 400 activities. That's a lot of people with whom we need to communicate. It's several requests that come in, and we're not going to hide the fact that Maryse really was an extraordinary employee. She worked, she put all of her heart into the work, and she did more than 21 hours a week. Everybody knows that. So essentially, I'll just go to the next slide. Okay, let me come back to the point I wanted to say. I'll explain the context a bit more right now. We've seen that there is a change in the people who are benefiting from our programs. So for immigrants and new Canadians, it wasn't even 50% of people, but now we are reaching a 50%. But the level of program beneficiaries hasn't increased dramatically. It's just the proportion of new arrivals that has increased. So essentially, people who are not from that group, so either single mother or father families and low income in general, that part of the population decreased. We don't think that it's because the needs decreased. We think that it's because there's not enough outreach. People are not aware of the program. any person who receives any form of social assistance, whether it's 13,000 per year or 15,000, I forget what the numbers are exactly, but we believe that anybody who gets these benefits should have access to the program. They can't afford to register their kids in sports for $500. So we are here because we see that there is a change in our population. There's a change in people in take up, but I think that there's a lack of outreach, and we've seen this through our statistics. Then there's also the aspect of inflation. It's just going to keep getting worse in the years to come. That means that people have less money for cultural and sporting activities because people have priorities, food, housing, and usually it's activities that fall to the wayside. So in 2022, Maryse told us that she was considering retirement. So in partnership with the city of Dieppe, we started doing strategic planning. We saw this as an opportunity for us. We thought maybe we could think about where the organization is going. Maybe we could have a new formula, a new framework. We wanted to see her departure as an opportunity. So we worked with a consultant in order to do the strategic work that I'll explain shortly. But we have three priority axes. So first of all, building organizational capacity. That's the first axis that we'll really be focusing on tonight. And after that, if we can change our organizational capacity, we will be moving to the next step, evolving the brand image and communication tools to really target the problem that we have, that is outreach, reaching out to communities who really need this program. And then we wish to have more funding through different campaigns and fundraising activities, whether it be the walks that we have in woolen socks and so on and so forth, all these activities. But we really want to have more strategies in general. Now, for strategic foundation, this is the component. This is one of the main components is our mission. I've already explained this. We work with Dieppe and Memram Cook. This presentation will be made to Memram Cook as well when we get an opportunity, because we want to get funding. And I'll tell you the punchline right now. We're hoping to hire a regional director, so we're trying to get more funding for that. So that is the mission, like I've said, to help families with lack of financial resources to have the opportunity to participate in cultural, recreational, and sports activities. We want children who are in need to have access to this program. There are direct impacts for them in the long term. This makes a difference in the future of your community as well. So we need to be surrounded by children who have the opportunity of being in programs, of having friendship, forming these bonds. And I think that that is important for the municipality's mission as well. Now, the objectives and the framework. So the first step that we targeted was to build organizational capacity. We analyzed needs, and we analyzed the creation for organizational capacities and needs. For example, what kind of formula could we use? Different things were proposed. For example, it was said that perhaps the city of Dieppe directly should manage Pro Kids. It would become a service. And that's more or less what we've been doing since Maryse retired, with the help of the entire service. So we've had help from other people like Sonia, Karine Boudreau. She helped us with organizing one of the activities, and Pro Kids tasks was spread out throughout different employees of the municipality of Dieppe. But then we realized perhaps it's not the perfect way of doing things. It's better if we have one person who takes care of everything. And when it comes to fundraising, well, for example, with the Boys and Girls Club, and it would be much more difficult to do fundraising. Whereas right now, we are an independent organization, and that makes it easier to donate, justify donating to the organization. We also met with the Riverview Pro Kids, and that's the formula that we tried so that it be managed by the municipalities. That's what they have, but they said that they wish to have our formula. So we were looking at them, but they were looking at us. So we thought, okay, maybe we should continue looking at our options. Perhaps we should modify what we're doing right now and not just have somebody who has all kinds of tasks and that Pro Kids is only one of the tasks. We've also met MyRap, that's through the YMCA in Moncton. That's the organization who takes care of that for the city of Moncton. And it's very different, but we notice that people tend to turn more towards activities offered by the YMCA. So we've wondered, perhaps there's a way for us to work with another community organization. Maybe we can help each other out. Maybe that's an option for us. So we met with different organizations like the Boys and Girls Club Dieppe. We noticed that it might not have been the ideal way of going forward, but then we kept working with consultants and we've come to the conclusion that we should hire a board of directors. So that is the solution that we have come to have a full-time executive director. So we've been thinking about it for a year, and their role would be strategic management and planning, operational planning and management, program planning and management, customer service management, financial planning and management, community relations, advocacy, human resources planning, management. So essentially, we are asking that the money that was used to pay the salary and any other resources that needed to be paid for, well, we are asking for those funds to be redirected to Pro Kids. So now we would pay the salary. So the salary wouldn't come directly from the city of Dieppe. It would come from Pro Kids, and we'd get money from the city of Dieppe. It's money that we used to get indirectly, thanks to your support. That is, that you used to pay Marise's salary. So that is what we are proposing right now. And if that worked, like I've said, we would hire the executive director, then a marketing firm. We'd create a comms plan, we'd create tools, and we'd launch a promotion campaign. After that, we would hit axis number 3, that is to create a campaign structure and a source of funding, creating donations, funding policy process, and launching this major campaign. I don't know if you have any questions, but I'd like to thank you for having listened to me. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from any members here, any councillors? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. First of all, congratulations for all the work that your organization does. I've often referred youth to your program, thanks to Marise's work as well in the past, and everything always went smoothly. The recommendations that you have, I support them personally. I want that to be clear. It's difficult for me to conceive that an employee from the service could eventually just go into a funding campaign. I don't see how the city could be participating in fundraising activities. And I think that last year it was announced that we got cuts. For example, Canadian Tire was a big supporter of this type of program. So I know there's gaps here. The needs are being felt everywhere. And here's my question. Tell me a little bit about how this would work. You have a governance structure? Well, I'm president of the board of directors. We have administrators. There is a VP who's here as well. I think that we are 7 right now, people, 7 people in the board. So it works in a similar way, like any other organization would. So we have meetings, just like any other not-for-profit. Yeah, let me ask the question otherwise. So you have a governance structure, but does the board of directors play a role in operations, in organizational activities? Do you really directly participate in all of it? Well, with regard to governance, the employee takes care of the day-to-day. We also do a lot of volunteer work, and we can also have ad hoc communities to help with specific decision-making when we don't necessarily have to discuss with all of the board members. So yes, we are directly involved. We all contribute. We understand that resources, everybody understands that resources are limited. I don't know if this answers your question at all. Yes, it does. Thank you. And again, congratulations for your organization. And I really do hope that things will work well for you and that you will be able to get through your 3 axes. Thank you. I don't see any other question or comment. So thank you very much for this presentation. And again, thank you for the opportunity that you give youth and their families as well. It allows them to really live these great experiences. Thank you very much. So we can now move to the next presentation. It's a presentation by Heritage and Partnership Sector with Pauline Cormier.
Bonsoir les membres du conseil, mes collègues.
Good evening, colleagues, councillors.
Allez voir. S'en vient?
L'aide s'en vient, oui.
Ça, je la trouve là.
Help is coming.
C'est ça. Parce que moi, le temps, il n'y avait pas. Non, je vais prendre ici. Merci. Donc, je voulais vous présenter, c'est sûr.
All right, I wanted to. We have a new heritage service, and so I wanted to talk to you about that tonight. My first slide is, and I did this on purpose, because this is the first presentation of the Heritage Division. And On the photo, you can see some fire officers in front of the fire hall. And that was also the municipal hall. Now that building was just on the corner of Marché and Champlain. So that building was built in 1949 by the mayor of the time, Arthur Leblanc. And Arthur Leblanc is the father of the field that the Rotary Park field was named after. So I'm also going to be talking to you about the summer season at Doiron House, the promotion activities that we did, the 2024 recommendations, and other heritage projects as well that I wanted to share with you and just give you a heads up about. And then we'll take questions and comments if you have any. So this first slide is a report basically on the 2023 summer season. So last year we had 806 visitor. We had a few more this year, 866. I also wanted to kind of show you the age group. So this year we had more families than last year. Last year it was more seniors, but this year we had more families. So, and it's really fun, and it's interesting to see how this develops. We had visitors from outside Canada and the United States as well. So 14 from Colombia, Dubai, Madagascar, France, Morocco. So that's interesting as well to see those visitors. So it's interesting to have them come and see the house. Now, by age group, visitors with tablets, users like, so that those numbers have been pretty stable. Source of information, word of mouth, that's something that we're going to be working on as well. Now we're part of the Association Heritage New-Brunswick website, and so we're going to be stepping up efforts to promote the house. So, and then the maximum visitors in 1 week, 133 this year and 124 last year. So it's those are interesting figures. And we had youth work for us this house, and they were good. They do well with answering questions, and they made recommendations as well. So, for example, in one of the rooms, we have a series of photos of the different mayors of Dieppe, and visitors recommended that we put information on their achievements. So that was the youth working for us passed on that message to us. Now, we had events held in the barn as well. There were weddings, but this year we started new activities. So we did a songwriter circle, 3 songwriter circle this summer on Sunday afternoons, and that brought out people to the barn. There we had an exhibition of old coins as well, and there were some of the coins were even older than Confederation. So a lot of people really like that, and that's something that we want to do with schools as well. We had 9 visits from various schools, and I'll be talking about this a little bit later. I was happy to see the presentation with Miss Alain and the free bus rides, and I'll tell you why I found it interesting there. So, in terms of promotion for the summer season, I think that I'm not going to go through the entire list, but we promoted the house on social media. We did advertising in various locations. There was media coverage as well. So we made the paper on August 24th. CTV came to do an interview. On June 5th. And we also, there's also going to be a film by TV5 Monde that will be broadcast in December. So it was the series talked about the Francophonie in the world, the Francophone world, and so Dieppe was part of that series. So all that to say that Dwaron House is starting to get better known. Sorry, it was a documentary. Recommendations for 2024, well, just more promotion. We're going to revise our business plan for the next 5 years. We're working on that right now, actually. And we had a business plan when we wanted to buy the house. We wanted to plan the interpretation in 2019. So we're going to be doing a business plan for the next 5 years. And we want to distribute, we want to continue distributing a promotional brochure to tourist sites across the province. We have different partnerships with the private sector, the business community, the community itself. So things are starting to pick up. And we're also now working on a promotional brochure to the private sector. So while the house is closed next year, we want to work on that aspect and bring people to the house while it's closed. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the Women Trailblazers Bank project, and we did a presentation on this in January with someone from University of Moncton. So this is going well. We're now doing research on women who've made a difference, and we have 6 names on the table. People have been sending us articles of women who've been active in the 1900s, and it's really interesting. So we're really interesting to start working on this, to work more on this project. In spring 2024, we'll be working on cards and poster design, and then we'll produce those. Sorry, that was for winter. And then the spring 2024, we'll be revising and producing the posters, and then June 2024, we'll unveil the project as the school year closes. Now, other heritage projects that we're working on right now. Well, actually, I'm the only one in that department so far, but so it's me working on the project. We are researching the historical information. So from 1952 to today, we have documents from, we have books as well, the achievements of the mayors that each mayor did during their term. So those are all things that we're going to be working on to create a timeline. And this, at least this is what I hope, is this project will be part of the 75th anniversary celebration of the municipality in 2026. So I don't know what form it'll take, but we want to do a history of the city of Dieppe. Other things that we want to do is collecting recorded stories of historical value from older people. So we want information on these people, on the city of Dieppe. So that's something that we'll be spending time on in 2024. We also want to highlight the commemorative dates of events in Dieppe. So I'll give you a perfect example of that. Ringette Dieppe will be celebrating its 35th anniversary next year. And so I gave them a history of how the organization began. They didn't know. And then that's something that's going to be presented at their annual banquet next year. And so a lot of our organizations don't know their history. So I'm going to try to help them in that respect. There are also presentations of our heritage to schools. I mean, we heard from Expansion Dieppe and what they're doing in the schools, but now people like to compare. So that's something that I'm working on with the communications department right now. we're going to get some old photos and compare with what, what we have today. So that's, I'm hoping to do the presentations in the schools. The library also requested a presentation during Heritage Month in February. So, and we'll also have something for the 75th anniversary in 2025. So when our summer student recommended, one of our summer students recommended that we bring daycare students into to the house, and they want to come, but they don't have transportation. So I'm looking into that. How can we arrange kids to travel by bus? If these are, there are a couple of scenarios that we'll be looking at to bring kids from daycares to visit Doiron House. And now we've just hired Megan Capello, a young person who's working for us 21 hours a week. She has a bachelor and a master's in the field. So she will be working on a greenhouse project. Maybe we'll see that project come to light after winter, because gardening is also something that we're looking at. Heritage gardening is something that we're looking at incorporating. So, and we're holding our first Halloween activity in the house in a couple of weeks. So, and those are things that she is going to be able to help me with. And then the Inclusio cafeteria wants to do to plant a garden. And that's something that they want to work on. So like an old style garden. So that's what we'll be working on with them. Pardon. So that's, are there any questions or comments? All right, thank you. It's very dynamic. You guys have a very dynamic place. We have one question from Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Ms. Janet. Ms. Cormier, thank you. Congratulations for your presentation. When I was looking at promotion, I just wanted to say that, well, congratulations for agreeing to host a municipal group that's going to be holding their meeting at the house next weekend. And those are people that, come from all around the province. So that's a very easy way to, to show people what we have to offer. And that will generate interest. At least I hope it generate a lot of interest in the house. Now you were talking about historical information from 1952, and I'm proud because I was born in 1952. So so thank you. All right, well, we're going to ask you for a black and white photo then. When I was a baby, you mean? Yes. Another thing I want to add is 2 weeks ago, I had there was a teacher's professional development day, a group that came to the house, and those teachers they couldn't understand how the students weren't always already doing projects with this house, and so I'm working with other groups to try to draw children to the house because they were very impressed by the house. We have a question or comment from Councillor. So in terms of promotions, are you planning to do anything with the Christmas market? Yes, it'll be over 2 days, December 2nd and 3rd, and it'll be 10 groups per day, not the same group. So we were able to find 10 groups. So it'll be December 3rd and December 10th, Sunday. And I think they start in the morning and then they go till about 2 in the afternoon. I have a question. In terms of tourism, Doiron House is a great site in our city. Have you ever thought of building like a tourism circuit? You know, heritage, we could pair heritage sites with other places in the city. I don't know, to create a circuit with a flyer that you can, you can check off that you visited such and such a site. I don't know. Is that something that you're discussing? Well, Ms. Elena just started in her new position. So definitely we'll be meeting with her to see what we can do for 2024, but that's on our radar. We want to do something. And even with the environment department, with Alexandre, all the various trees that we have, because there are different, there are rare trees in Dieppe. And so we want that to be part of the heritage circuit as well. We want to identify those things. All right, excellent. All right, well, things are certainly happening at Doiron House. All right, if there are no further questions or comments, so that brings our evening to an end. Thank you for coming to do your presentation. All right.